Welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. Let's pick up where we left off yesterday. We're in 1 Samuel chapter 3, and let's just dive right in. Now the young man Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days, and there was no frequent vision. I think that that's important for us to know, that God speaking to the prophets, to the priests, that was rare at this time. Verse 2, at that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was lying down in his own place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was. And that's key. He's lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark of God was, which is incredibly unusual. So is it saying he's lying down in the Holy of Holies, or is it saying he's lying down in the tent of meeting, where the ark was? Or is it saying he's lying down in the tent of meeting, specifically where the ark was? Either way, the fact that he is sleeping in the tent of meeting is somewhat profound. The Lord called Samuel and said, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But he said, "I didn't call you, go lay down again." So he went and lay down again. And the Lord called again to Samuel and said, "Samuel." Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call you, my son, lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. Now remember, in the previous chapter we saw that Samuel was growing in wisdom and in stature with the Lord, but he still was not familiar with the Lord speaking to him, right? The word of the Lord was rare in those days, after all. Verse 8, and the Lord called Samuel again the third time, and he arose and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the young man. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go, lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant hears.'" And Samuel went and lay down in his place, and the Lord came and stood, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant hears." Then the Lord said to Samuel, "Behold, I am about to do a thing in Israel which the two ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. On that day I will fulfill against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house by the man of God in the previous chapter. And I declared to him that I am about to punish his house forever for the iniquity that he knew, because his sons were blaspheming God and he didn't restrain them." I want you to know something here. Anytime you see something like this, I'm about to do something that the two ears of everyone who hears about it will tingle, it is not going to be good. Okay, we know that here it's the destruction of the household of Eli. It's the bringing of end to that. You'll find this in three other places. You'll find it in 2 Kings 21:12, Jeremiah 19:3, and Habakkuk 1:5. And in all of these places, God is about to bring destruction on people. In 2 Kings 21, it's under King Manasseh, considerably the most evil king in all of Judah's history, and God is about to bring destruction on them. In Jeremiah 19, it is Jeremiah prophesying about the coming of Babylon to come and destroy the people of Jerusalem. And in Habakkuk 1:5, it's also dealing with King Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon coming to destroy the people of Israel or Judah. And so it is never a good thing. And if I won't ever forget, Habakkuk 1:5, years and years and years ago, somebody said, "Hey, let's do this big event. Let's have this big speaker come in. It's for a citywide event. We want people to come and learn about Jesus. The theme's going to be Habakkuk 1:5. He goes, "I'm about to do something in your day that both your ears will tingle. You wouldn't believe if you even heard it." And I was like, no, the thing he's about to do is kill everybody. And they're like, "No, that's not how we mean it. We mean that God's about to do something great that you wouldn't believe if told." I'm just telling you right now, if anybody ever says to you, "Hey, God's about to do something, come and do this event with us. God's about to do something, you wouldn't believe it if told, your ears will tingle," don't go. Every other time in the Bible, it's judgment. So just avoid that scenario, okay? It's bad. And so verse 14, God continues speaking to Samuel, and he says, "Therefore, I swear to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever." And I'll just tell you this really quickly. I had some friends years ago, and they were looking for a name for their firstborn. And I said, "What about Eli?" I had recommended Eli. It means like my God. And they went and they read the story of Eli, and they decided that since his house's sin will never be atoned for, they're like, maybe I don't want to name my son that. And so it is interesting why we choose names, right? So that was enough for them to be like, "I don't want my son to be like Eli," which I get. So Samuel lay until morning, and then he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And Samuel was afraid to tell the vision to Eli. Samuel's a young man, and he's going to tell Eli, "Look, yeah, God's about to destroy you." But Eli called Samuel and said, "Samuel, my son." And he said, "Here I am." And Eli, verse 17 says, what is it that he told you? Don't hide it from me. May God do so to you and more also if you hide anything from me of all that he told you. So Samuel told him everything and hid nothing from him. So Samuel says, look, God says that he's about to destroy you and he's about to bring the judgment upon you that he promised. And listen to Eli's response. It is the Lord. Let him do what seems good to him. I'm baffled by this. I'm baffled by this response. There's no grief. There's no sorrow. There's no repentance. It's just like, all right, God can do whatever he wants to do. And I just want you to call to mind, remember, this is the chief priest right here. His sons are wicked priests. They're sleeping with the temple, with the ladies who lay outside the temple. They're stealing the offering. They're dishonoring the altar. And they are wicked, man. And it just shows you, like, think about when people would charge Moses and Aaron with unjust charges. What were the response every time? They'd hit their faces. They'd humble themselves before the Lord. They would cry out to the Lord. When we see righteous people confronted with their sin, when we see David get confronted with his sin, he grieves and mourns. Like, wicked people go, all right, whatever. Like, whatever. It's just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Let God do whatever seems right. Like, this is Eli's response, and it's a callous response, I think. Verse 19, Samuel grew and the Lord was with him. And I love this. And God let none of his words fall to the ground. And all of Israel from Dan to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. Remember, the Lord had been silent up to this point. He hadn't been saying much. And so Samuel now is going to be the voice of the Lord. And the Lord appeared again at Shiloh, for the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. Now the word of the Lord came to Samuel and to all of Israel. And Israel went out to battle against the Philistines. Samuel's a little more grown up here. We don't know his age. They encamped at Ebenezer. It's not named Ebenezer yet. It will be later. Tomorrow you'll see when it gets its name, Ebenezer. But he's just telling us the name because this is the name that the Jews would have been familiar with. They camped at Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped at Aphek. And the Philistines drew up in line against Israel, and the battle spread. Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men on the battlefield. And when the troops came to the camp, the elders of Israel said, why did the Lord defeat us today before the Philistines? Let's bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord here from Shiloh, that it may come among us. Let us save us from the power of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh and brought from there the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, who is enthroned on the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. Look, the Ark of the Covenant is supposed to stay in the Holy of Holies. That's where it's supposed to be. They're dishonoring the Lord here again. Verse 5, as soon as the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all of Israel gave such a mighty shout that the entire earth resounded. Some of your translations will say the whole earth shook. And when the Philistines heard the noises of the shouting, and they said, what does this great shouting mean in the camp of the Hebrews? And when they heard that the ark of the Lord had come into the camp, the Philistines were very afraid, and they said, a god has come into camp. And they said, woe to us, for nothing like this has ever happened before. Woe to us, who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods, catch this, these are the gods who struck the Egyptians with every sort of plague in the wilderness. This was 390 years earlier, and the Philistines are still scared. They're still pooping their pants over it, right? The Ark of the Covenant is coming into the Israelite camp. The Philistines learn about it and they're like, oh my goodness, this is the God that destroyed. These are the gods that destroyed the Egyptians. And then verse 9, of course, the Philistines at this point don't know that God has handed the Israelites over to be judged. So verse 9 says, take courage and be men, O Philistines, lest you become slaves to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Be men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and they fled, every man to his home. And there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 soldiers, the day before 4,000. The ark of God was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. A man of Benjamin ran from the battle lines and came to Shiloh that very same day with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. When he arrived, Eli was sitting on the seat by the road watching, and his heart trembled for the ark of God. He's anxious that the ark of God has left the tent of meeting. When the man came into the city and told the news, and all the city cried out, and Eli heard the sound of the outcry, he said, what is the uproar? And the man hurried and came and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were set so deep that he could not see. He's blind, right? And the man said to Eli, I am the one who has come from the battle. I fled from the battle today. And he asked him, how did it go, my son? He who brought the news answered and said, Israel has fled before the Philistines. There has also been a great defeat among the people. Your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God has been captured. As soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell over backwards from his seat by the side of the gate, and his neck was broken, and he died, for the man was old and heavy, and he had judged Israel for 40 years. Now his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, we'll hear more about Phinehas and his descendants later. The daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was pregnant, about to give birth. When she heard the news that the ark of God was captured and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed down and gave birth, for the pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the women attending to her said, "Do not be afraid, you have borne a son." But she did not answer or pay any attention. She named the child Ichabod, saying, "The glory of God has departed," because the ark of God had been captured and because the father-in-law and her husband had died. And she said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured." The glory of God, in fact, was departing, right, remember the Ark of the Covenant was called the mercy seat. It was the place where God would meet with the priest, and now that's been removed. If you want to see another place where the glory of God is departing from Jerusalem, you just need to go over to Ezekiel chapter 9, and we'll find that there as well. What's in a name? Well, Ichabod, don't name your child Ichabod for a lot of reasons, but one of them being the glory has departed. It means the glory has departed. And so this is the beginning of God's judgment on Eli and his judgment on the Israelites who've gone into sin. And he had made a statement to Eli in the previous couple of chapters that we saw that he was going to bring them to destruction, that he was going to kill both of his sons in the same day. And now we are seeing what it looks like is the fulfillment of this. All of his sons, only one will be left to weep out his eyes. And it sounds like we go, oh, okay, that must be Ichabod, right? The mom dies, the father dies, the grandfather dies, and Ichabod's the only one left. But there's a little bit more to it than that, as we'll see in the future. But meantime, God is speaking to Samuel, and Samuel has now heard the voice of the Lord, and he will be a prophet, and the Bible will also call him the final judge of the people of Israel before they receive a king. And so we're back with Samuel tomorrow. We're going to be in chapters 5, 6, and 7. Very important chapters. And come back and join us then. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible through another section of Scripture where we come to know and understand God a little bit better. Look, if you're brand new to Simpler Bible, we have all sorts of resources available for you. Go to our website, simplerbible.com, and there you can find these videos, you can find our podcast, you can find links to our social media, and you can even find a blog post with additional scriptures if you want to go into a little bit more study than we had time to cover in this podcast and video today. We hope that this tool will be exactly that for you, a tool. Not something that replaces your daily walk with God, but something that enhances your daily walk with God and helps you to know and enjoy Him more. Thank you so much for being part of this, and we'll see you again tomorrow.